we're going to go ahead and change the oil in this compressor. I've run this for about 30 minutes already this morning just to get it all warmed up. The ideal way to do it is to offload and recover your cars in the morning. While everything's warm, you come in and start draining the oil. Before we actually do anything about it, we go and make sure the circuit breaker is turned off. Then part of our lockout tagout procedure involves locking this out, and this can sometimes be a bit of a hoot. There we go. Take your key. We need to document the fact that we did lock it out. So in our maintenance folder, we're going to put down what lock number. There it is, lock number 4. And we're going to show where it's at. When it comes to taking anything else apart in the compressor, we have to lock out a couple more things. The purpose of the lockout tagout, so go back and read the SOP, says that the purpose of the lockout tagout is to cut off any energy source on the equipment you're working on. Well, electricity is an energy source, and so is propane. So before you actually go into the machine, take anything off of the machine, we have to shut off the propane coming in and the propane valve going out. It's pretty simple, but it's an easiest thing for me to forget. It's super easy to overlook it. So that's why we do the lockout tagout now, no matter what. At least I know this thing isn't going to run until I'm ready for it to run. Now that we've got this ready, we got to get a few things. I always try to get everything ready ahead of time, and I try not to get into a rush about this, but it's just one of those things. You just take your time and be prepared to run back and forth to get what you need. But first things first, going to put down an absorbent pad. Catch any crud coming out of there. That. Now's a good time to pop that. Split that vent. Now's not a bad time. Install another pad down here. Because once we pull that out, that's going to leave. Alright, now let's go ahead and pull that plug, and these things don't drain out very fast, so just be patient. Like I said, not very fast, but it works. So I'm going to take that out. We're going to let that drain, and while we do, we're going to take off this access plate over here. Number 2 Phillips. This is where we add the oil. You need to find your model number, serial number, take a picture of them, save them on your computer somewhere, make sure they're written down, because it does contain information that you are going to need. This is pretty simple here, just about 10 little screws. And it's just got a little cork gasket on the back. Nothing to it. Pretty simple. And this is where we're going to pour in the oil. We're going to pour it into this hole here and pour it into that hole right there. At the Corken factory, they got a little metal shoe that they'll hold here and they'll pour their oil in. And it's because they want to direct the oil onto the journals down inside there to make sure that they're covered in oil before the machine starts up again. So, let's go over here. This compressor holds a roughly a little bit over 7 quarts by the time it all gets said and done. So, that's probably enough for right now. Now we're going to drain this out. All my other oil jugs are full, so I had to get some new ones. Now we'll just let that drain till it's completely done. So now that we've got that access open, when we get this down low enough, we're going to take off this access plate. The only reason I take that off is it allows you to get inside that crankcase area. And if you ever wonder, if you're ever concerned, am I having internal wear on my machine? You might see some stuff come out of here. You may see stuff inside this screen. But if we take that out, take a rag, put a rag in there and let it soak up that oil that's laying there in the bottom, then you pull the rag out and you look at it. And if you see any metal, shiny metal pieces, any little fragments, that's a good indicator that you have internal wear going on inside your machine. In a normal course of events, you don't necessarily have to take that apart as part of your normal oil change. It's just something to keep in mind that that's an option. It's a good way to check to see if you have trouble. Now let's see if we can get this little monster off. Oh, yeah, here we go. End up setting that down to go drain. Yeah. The factory from Corken will send you, has always in the past, and they change now, they send a Fram oil filter and a Fram pressure gauge. It's really small, like 1.5 inch diameter, something like that. I don't like it. On all 3 of my machines, I've replaced my pressure gauges with I think they're 2.5 inch liquid filled. Much more accurate. There we go, got that one done. I'm gonna go turn this up to drain. What I'm draining out right now is my winter oil. Winter, I run a synthetic, well, summer, winter, I run synthetic oil. The Corken manual gives a whole different list of recommended oil manufacturers. Really what they amount to is they're just a single weight, 30 weight oil, non-detergent oil. What I run, and because I don't have an oil heater, I don't have a block heater on none of mine. So I put in a lower viscosity oil in the winter. In the winter I run 0 W40. In the summer, I run 10W40. Works great for me. I have no issues. The Corken manual also clearly states that it is not necessary to run synthetic oil. That if you just run the oil that they list, that's good oil. Doesn't hurt anything to run synthetic. This is where my own personal bias comes in. I am a big fan of synthetic oils and greases and stuff, have been for a long time. So I run them, but I don't run the expensive stuff. Generally speaking, I buy what's available, what's been proven to be good. Amazon Basics is good. Walmart, Supertech, Meyer brand oil. Those three come from the same oil company. Same one manufactures it. Highly rated oil, really good. This time out, they had some Castrol 10W40 synthetic. That's what I'm going to run today. So everybody has their own preference. If I had a block heater in here, there's a good chance I probably would not run a multi-weight oil. I probably would stick exactly with what Corken recommends. But because I don't, and I expect this thing to pump and flow no matter what, that's why I go with a multi-weight oil, and that's why in the winter I drop down to a 0W40. It's been great. Like I said, it's been great for me. Now, that thing's going to take quite a long time to drain. So what I'm going to do while I'm waiting on that is I'm going to get a 1/4-inch drive socket with a 1/2 inch. Hold that. And once again, we're dealing with just a cork gasket. I want to be able to show you down inside there is that screen. It's a pickup screen. It's just designed to catch anything big before it gets into the oil distribution system. And that gives you an idea. There's still quite a bit of oil in there to drain out, and it does take a long time. Now what we're going to do next, and you can really just stay there and watch that, is we're going to pull that screen. And that screen, you need a 1 3/8 socket to pull that. The only 1 3/8 I got's in my big socket set, so it's a bit overkill for this, but you'll get an idea. And just hold on here just a second, I'm gonna put some floor dry down. Try to keep that oil from causing too much of a mess. There's really no way I found to not make a mess here. And there we go. There's your screen. Just comes off of there. And so what we're going to do now, get some brake cleaner. Maybe. I don't know what that little fuzzy is. Get that wiped off of here. There we are. All it seals with is that little metal washer. That's all it is. Just a metal on metal. Nothing fancy, nothing special about it. And you can see that mess of that oil just running out, and that's why I tried to get the absorbent padding in there, try to do some things to help it out, but at the end of the day, it's just going to be a mess. So try to work around it, and then like I said, it just that's it. Now this thing's ready to go, but we're not ready to go. So what we're going to do now is we're going to do, like I said, we're going to go and we're going to check this oil, see if we have any metal in the oil. Two years ago, I had to replace the packing barrels in here, and they gave me fits, and I had one of them go bad on me, and I had to replace it twice, and that caused some foreign material to get down into my oil when I did that. And that's what I got down inside there. There's a little bit of foreign material from where my packing barrel went bad on me. There's no metal, but that is old seal, or what's left of multiple seals. That's all I got down in there. So, and I cleaned that once, cleaned it out really good once after that packing barrel came apart on me. So, overall, I'm really happy with that. I think we're in really good shape. So now, I'm gonna go ahead and put the cover back on, and then we'll come back and we'll put the pickup screen back in, we'll put the plug back in, then we can begin to add oil. All right, now I've got everything put back together. I have my side plate down on the side of the crankcase, plug back in the drain tube. I have my dip stick reinstalled. So now we're ready. And what I do is I just take the bottom or the side of an antifreeze bottle, and I just cut and made my own shoe so I can stick it down inside there. And we put in 7 quarts of oil, and then I always add motor coat, and that I'm sure is quite the overkill, but I'm a firm believer in motor coat, so I use it. And then so we're gonna line this up so that it dumps right into those holes that I showed you earlier, and then we just make sure we don't run, nothing comes running out as we pour. And I, of course, have never, ever, never once forgot to put something back in changing oil. Except for that one time. But after that, never, never, never. So hopefully you won't either. But if you do, now's the time to catch it. All right, now we're just going to leave that sit. That's 5 quarts. So what we're going to do now is we're going to transfer 2 quarts into here and my motor coat. I got 16 ounces of motor coat. Now we're going to put in 2 quarts. Right there. Half a quart. There we go. Now we're going to slide this over to the other hole. Do the same thing. Oops, running out on me. Didn't get lined up there. That happens. Yeah, we'll take this down. We're going to clean up our bit of a mess here. All right, now I've got my data plate put back on. Before I unlock my tag stuff, I want to make sure I got floor dry down here. I'm going to leave it set for a couple, 3 hours, broom it up, and then use brake cleaner to clean everything else off. That plate is on, my oil stick is in, and it's tough to see new oil, but we are right there, just right at the line. It'll change a little bit once we run it. I got my plug in. I have the 2 wrenches that I need because we're changing oils. It's a real good possibility we'll have to change the pressure there. So let's pull this. Got that. Oh, before we get going too far, I want to show you, I mentioned earlier about laminating stuff. That's a cross section of the heads. Here's cross guide assembly details. There's stuff about replacing the valves and pulling the top off the cylinder head. This is about pistons, the piston and rings and all that. Here's another one. Yeah, Corken manual did not have these listed, so I had to get a hold of Corken, and they gave me the numbers, so I wrote them down. And that's packing barrel info, more packing barrel info. Here's the manual, and that's why I laminate them. These things just kind of get dirty, nasty. I'm just terrible about working with stuff. Now, here is where Corken gives a list of oils, stuff like that. Compressor models 891, 7 quarts. So we have got where is it? I just looked right at it. Crankcase oil pressure adjustment. Oil pressure should be about 20 psi minimum for normal service. That's not necessarily startup pressure, but I go by running this thing, getting it hot, letting it run for an hour or so, and see what my pressure is. If the compressor or discharge pressure is above 200 psi, a minimum of 25, well, my system never runs that. I target 25 to 27 psi roughly is the target that I shoot for my compressor pressures, oil. So, should be ready. Let's get this thing fired up, and it will probably be a bit of a delay before my pressure gauge picks up. Let me get over here. There we are. We're really cranking it up there. That's a little on the high side, even though we're cold. When it gets warmer, it'll drop. Here's your adjusting for your oil pressure. 7/8 and a 9/16. Take your 7/8, back it off a little. Then you turn in the 9/16 for more, and you back it off for less. Come on, come on, look. There we go. We're cold for startup for now. I'm happy with that. And now I'm looking around. I don't see anything obviously leaking. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to end up shutting it down. Next week I'm going to keep running it, and I want to monitor my pressure. So when this thing's been running for 3 or 4 hours straight, I want to make sure I try to maintain probably a minimum of about 24 pounds, probably preferably be 25. It's not uncommon to have to adjust these more than once after you get going. That's really it for changing the oil.